Well, hello there. This is Virtual Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today, I'm really pleased to show you this game, which I think demonstrates a particular tactical approach, common particularly, I think, in the middle game, which is where you set up a preemptive tactical pattern. So basically where the tactic isn't there yet, but you're setting up the environment such that that tactic can potentially occur. And more often than not, you will find that setting these things up eventually leads to good outcomes. Well, let's go take a look. I've got the white pieces in this game, and my opponent played the Pirc defense. So e4 and d6. No, that's a hyper-modern opening. Very often, knight will go here, potentially fianchettoing that bishop. The Pirc defense is quite interesting in that it was really advocated for by Pirc. And in his lifetime, it sort of went from what was considered a rather dubious opening to something that was completely sound. The really interesting thing here, like many of the hyper-modern openings, is that the first time it actually appears in Western databases are in the series of games played in 1850 in Kolkata between Cochrane and Banerjee. And Banerjee was a very strong Indian player in Kolkata, and he actually played quite a few games repeatedly using what is now known as the Pirc defense. Have a look at the description for a little bit more information about the Pirc. Now here, what I usually do, historically was play d4. This time I decided to play the knight first. They develop their knight, that's fine. Let's develop the bishop. They play another slow move. I now take the full center. And my goal here now is potentially to really try to push the pawn. So one of the things I found when I was making my f4, f5 openings is that I discovered that there's a few lines where white plays early f4 against the Pirc and also against the modern defense, of which it can transpose into, and often ends up quite good for white. So here they continue to develop in this slow, very, very sort of defensive way, and so now thrust forward, f4, try to take the center. You can see that that's a bit inaccurate, but it's only inaccurate if black finds the right response, which isn't necessarily that easy to find, particularly if you're in the mindset that you're playing slower, defensive, careful moves. The best move here for black is actually to take with the knight. So captures, because after capture back, black now has that very nice fork. Now here it's basically equal, the game continues, but in this position, black must capture. That's their only good move. Everything else is good for white. Now, black here does not find that move, which is again why this is quite a forcing move. They decide to play e5. It's a blunder. It's a blunder here, and I kind of saw this, even though I didn't play it the most accurately. Is that after captures, if they capture back, that is now pinned to the queen. Now, that's potentially okay. Take with attack on their knight. They take here, but now I can force a queen trade. Captures, and black loses the right to castle. Here, I thought I was doing fine, probably ahead. Interestingly enough, Stockfish doesn't really think so. So it's basically equal, even though that black has lost the right to castle and the king is stuck on this fully open d-file. However, this is where you need to take Stockfish's evaluations with a grain of salt. So if you play perfectly accurately, yes, it's basically equal. However, black has lost the right to castle. The king is on the fully open d-file. I don't have, with the white pieces, these sort of potential weaknesses. I do have, this isolated e-pawn, which is potentially a problem and a target. However, black is probably in a position that's a little bit harder to play. Let's see what happens. So obviously they had an attack on the bishop, so I had to pull the bishop back. They try now to pile on the pressure again, and the pressure builds. I block that. They now decide to defend and also potentially putting pressure on my e-pawn as expected. I now long castled. And here, this long castle wasn't actually considered by Stockfish to be the most accurate move. Stockfish actually recommended developing the knight first. However, here what I saw is that with my rook on d1, the rook controlling the fully open d file, this means that potentially if my bishop moves, I've got a potential discovered check. Similarly, if black decides to block the e file, which they do with the bishop to d7, this means that there is a potential discovered pin. Now, that king cannot castle. Just remember, it cannot castle, it's moved, and now I develop the knight. Now, in this position, black, just like before when the tension built, they decide to fire first. They shot first and they decide to break the tension. But in this case, actually just like last time, it's a blunder. They capture and they decide to trade off their bishop. It's a blunder because let's see what happens at the end of the sequence. I capture back, discovered pin. My king is already castled, their king stuck in the center, and this, preemptive setting of that potential attack now will catch black effectively off guard as we move to the end of the trade sequence. So they take, I take this way, they decide to give this fork, which is what I saw. And the interesting thing here is I didn't calculate down the entire line. I just had a belief at the end that this will probably become significant. So they've got an attack on both sides. That's fine. I take this way, counterattacking the rook. They counterattack my bishop. That's fine. Here, I bring the bishop back. I wanted to get rid of that pawn. It is now pinned, placing pressure on the pinned piece. They capture, but now I capture back with the rook. Okay, once again, placing pressure on the pinned piece. Now, black has three pieces. They've got the rook pair, so they've got potentially the better material, but I've got the bishop pair, and that bishop is lost at the end of the chain. I have to move the king, captures, and here I'm completely winning. You can see +4 in material. Importantly, I've got 4 pieces to black's rook pair. This is almost certainly stronger in sort of late middle game and the end game. And in fact here, I didn't think I could probably save all my pieces. And in fact, what I want to do is simplify. I've got 4 pieces, I've got 2. I'm happy to trade up to 2 pieces to get rid of one of their rooks so that we move into the end game where I'm up a piece. And that's exactly what I do. They play that. That makes sense. Here we go. I take. They try to have another attack. 2 attackers. That's fine. Check. They take with the king, pretty much forced. But now I've got another absolute fork and I win the rook. They capture, but I've got exactly what I've wanted. Endgame, rook and bishop versus the rook. I've also got a pawn majority on the king side, completely winning. Here, I make a move. I just move the bishop out of the way, potentially, maybe something like that. But here, black didn't want to play the endgame. It's a losing endgame, opted to resign. Good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is that setting up a preemptive tactical possibility can be a good, coherent approach, even if the move may not be the most accurate according to Stockfish on analysis. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.